Good evening, everyone. We are starting our today meeting, which is related with the topic we start in our week 4. As you see, the course is moving faster, and from now on, it's going to be moving faster, even faster, because let's say the first 2 weeks were warming up, but now we are going with finishing several topics and starting new ones. So today we will be doing overview where we stand with Watson, exploring natural language processing, cognitive computing, which is what we are doing in the discussion. And then I'm going to give you very short overview of this new, let's say, very advanced technology, which is dashDB in memory analytics, which serve very well certain business purposes. And of course, we are going to have Q&A. So before proceeding with dashDB, I would like to share Blooming screen. Can you see my Blooming screen now? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what we are doing in the discussion is besides reading, besides completing the reading, we are discussing what we are learning about Watson as a cognitive computing, what are the capabilities of this computer, and what we can do in our job as a data analyst and data professional in the field in which we are more interested. Maybe it's the field you are working right now or something which you are targeting. I want to point your attention in 2 things. For instance, even if you see, let's see this speech-to-text application. When you scroll down, you will see that the first 1,000 minutes are free. This is if you are going to use API to do something. But before that, you should start exploring what is the documentation, okay, and view demo, okay. And when you go to speech to text, there are many things you can upload your recording by the option upload audio video, or you can play the sample and you will get inside Okay, I'm not going to play more. I'm leaving you. I guess you listen and you saw the transformation from audio to text, and you in your own you can play with what is already available here, or you can upload your own audio video. This is just regarding this APA. Let's say other thing I wanted to point your attention, let's say we are in Personality Insight, for instance. They just updated this, I would say, 4 days ago. So for me, even was interesting. Obviously, you can look when you click in any of the services in Bloomix. You can look when was the last update done, and you can see that here some updates were performed a few days ago. So always you will find something interesting, something new, or something challenging, which doesn't match your previous work, but that is the reality working in the cloud where everyone is. So when you go here to the Personality Insight, you will see many stuff. I want to point your attention. You can go to the demo. You explore the demo on your own. I'm leaving this to you. But if you go here to what is additional resources and you have blog David, there are many webinars and videos which are very helpful, so you can go more in deep, not just with the demo, but explore more what you can do more realistically. So don't hesitate to go and navigate as much as you can in all these options which are available in the Watson application. Up to here, any question regarding what we are doing with Watson application? Let's open the chat. I don't see any question. So I assume that you know what to do and you will be doing this in your own paces. So my suggestion is explore as much as you can, go in deep as you can, so you can share your challenges, questions, experience, finding in the classroom discussion, and everyone will learn together because this is huge. This is ocean of stuff you can learn only in Watson, and not to talk about what is in the whole Bloomix, which we don't pretend that we can do more than these two group of services in a single class to explore some of them. So the class is set up this way that we are going to go, let's say, no more in deep in several interesting and very important topic in what is analytic for big data. And then you have the door open in your future or own time right now in parallel to go more in deep and of course to ask questions from the instructor, from the TA, and learn more as much as you can and get more benefits from the class. So don't hesitate to do this. I'm just coming from the summit in Washington, D.C. For 3 days. AWS has a summit in DC for the government and education. I was in the educational table on Monday, and let's just go a little sidewalk to what is analytic and data analytic we are doing. The sister part, which is not separable right now from analytic, is the cloud. Everything is in the cloud, and everything is moving to the cloud in any of the company. And cloud provider like AWS or Microsoft or Google or IBM, they are enhancing, they are not just cloud provider anymore, because up to now, mostly AWS was just cloud provider and the biggest one as a cloud provider. They never been in the realm of analytics. But now they are putting and they are branding different analytical products in their cloud infrastructure. So when they get a customer, they offer them not just the bare cloud architecture, but also software and services. And this is which is actually everyone in the business doing this. So Amazon is now jumping to different services. They don't want to remain as a pure cloud provider. On the other hand, players like IBM and Microsoft, which are very strong in analytics, they are the leaders in analytics together with SaaS. On the other hand, they have all their analytical services much less expensive and more accessible in the cloud. So they have their own cloud and the services there. So this is the today tendency. I just want to warn you. And why I want to warn you? Because this assignment you will find challenging, not from point of view of analytics, but from point of view to put together all the dots and understand how things are working in the cloud. In the cloud, things are working differently than in your personal computer, and we will be talking shortly about this. So if no more question in this introductory part, I don't see any question right now. No question in the chat. I will proceed with the overview of this in-memory analytic technology, which we will be using for our next project we start with walkthrough to understand the tool we will be using next and the following week for an assignment, which is sentimental analysis on Twitter data. But this week, we will focus mostly to understand what maximum we can get from the tool, what are the challenges for this tool. That's why we start with what is a tutorial for to start using dashDB. So what is dashDB and what is in-memory computing? I would like to start pointing from the business value of in-memory computing. Why is in-memory computing important? There are many business problems which require access to data and reporting data in very short period of time. So sooner you got answer to certain questions, you can have competitive advantage compared to other businesses. So having better and faster decision, getting insight for your data is number one in many businesses. And of course, it depends on the type of the problem. Just a single problem. If you are working with millions of customers and you would like to provide, you are collecting, let's say, data like the data for the parking meters in the city, in city like Washington, D.C. This is huge amount of data, and you need this data. It's not only that you collect this data in real time, you need to get insight from this data as soon as possible, so your business know where is the crowded area of parking, where you can direct more customers, and so on and on and on. Because the parking area, you know, they are managed by different company. Other is loyalty cards. Let's say you want to enter the information to update the loyalty card of your million customer almost in less than a minute or in less than 3 minutes. So for this type of business, and this is just simple, a few examples. There are thousands of examples which businesses want to have the insight faster and better. So that is the place where in-memory computing start playing a role. When we talk about in-memory computing, the idea is that like everything is in the RAM of the computer. Of course, you understand that today this is totally impossible and unsustainable with the amount of data. Even with the price of the RAM going cheaper, this is not sustainable. So new technology are needed because you cannot have like brute force everything uploaded in the RAM of the computer and doing analytic in memory. Totally impossible in the big data world with the amount of information coming from sensor, for instance. So company like IBM, they are all a company, they have come to develop very advanced technology using every advance in computer science and electronics to build this in-memory analytic new technology, which one of the specific implementation is dashDB, and we have access to this technology in Bluemix. What is the advantage of this new technology? This new technology doesn't mean that everything physically is in the RAM, because RAM actually today is a bottleneck. It's a bottleneck because the CPU is much faster, and in order to access the data to RAM, there is a lot of overhead. So this new technology pretend to do like in memory analytics, but much faster, and this much faster means at the speed of the CPU. Just a simple example, this new in-memory processing acceleration, which are patented technology, they can give you what usually is $5,000 processing dollar for gigabyte in a less than 1 penny. That is this amazing new technology. And I'm going to point to some without going too much in deep, because we are not data scientists. We are interested from point of view of data analysts to have knowledge of this technology we are going to use and focus, of course, in the analytical part. So here are some of the examples I already mentioned. And this new technology is going to is built in what is patented technology named BLU. Don't think this stands for anything. It comes from blue and is very complex thing which is composed from several components. One of them is what is named parallel vector processing, which previously, if some of you are in computer science, was named simple instruction multiple data, SIMD. That is the classical computer science, let's say, parallel processing, and they work on the memory is organized in columnar format. So from big data perspective, very convenient. And this BLU patented technology work as in memory analytics and can give us the advantage of to do analytics fast, better, and cheaper. And that means one of the features, I extracted just 3 features, which in my point of view, from analytical point of view, not for computer science, are the most important. And this is that, for instance, you can prefetch data and have the data prefetched, anticipating that this data will be needed for processing. Also, you can skip certain data. Let's say maybe large chunk of this streaming data coming for processing is not needed for this problem, which is said. This chunk of data can be skipped, and of course everything can be accelerated. And you understand that a complex fetching algorithm are to work on this in order to be able to prefetch data, to skip data. And other important thing is not decompression is required, because dashDB preserves the order of the data and perform the operation, including even join. So this is very important in this new technology, because usually all this new technology, they cannot achieve things like this. And the other, which I have on top, is the most important. So what I have on the bottom is the technology, but on the top is the important thing, which we are as a data analyst concerned in this class, and the way we are going to use this technology as a tool to do analytics. So they are predictive algorithm built in. That means you have a product with built-in predictive modeling capability, and this is where we are going to focus on. One of the things which I want to point and clarify, because I don't want that you get the impression, the storage free is 1 gigabyte, and you can say, this is not too much. We are talking about that this is streaming analytics. This is not a storage memory. This is permanent storage memory, what I'm saying. This is this buffering memory, which you are going to use for your predictive modeling, and it's not small amount for a real problem to do, and the problems we are going to work with. So regarding the parallel technology, it's very important that you understand that this is not just like Hadoop, let's say, many Hadoop is cluster of commodity computer, right? Here we are talking about a little differently because it's again cluster of networked cluster of many CPU that work in parallel, but in order to achieve this BLU technology, the speed of this networked connection is very fast, and the memory is organized in columnar format. Why columnar format is very important for big data. Think about the traditional relational database when data is organized in table and you actually are accessing a row of data. When we talk about millions of rows in big data, if you start doing just simple calculation, you will see that accessing data by row is unsustainable when we talk about big data. That's why the movement to NoSQL appeared in order to deal with big data. So the wide columnar structure is one of the new NoSQL actually technology and how it helps with big data. Let's suppose you have huge data set with millions of rows, but you are interested to process only 3 columns of this huge data set. Very efficiently, you can access column 1, 3, and 7 in this columnar organization, even if they are millions of rows. And this is one of the advancements in this, let's say, columnar data organization, which is kind of the new NoSQL instead of row organization. And this is the built-in, let's say, dashDB is built on the wide columnar architecture of the data. And because of all these features and much more, if you are interested in the classroom, there are many links. And even if you are interested in what is technology more to go in deep in the computer science part, there is plenty of more information if you research, starting with the links which are in the classroom and going to more in depth if you have the time to do this, in addition to the focus to the assignment we are going to do in the class. So in all this way to build dashDB gives you something which Hadoop cannot do. It scales linearly. Hadoop doesn't scale linearly. And what that means, if you add 4 more servers, your processing time will be 4 times less. For instance, if it was with one server 1 hour, you add 4, you are going to have the time divided in 15 minutes. This linear scaling actually is not available in many of the new big data technology. And this is, of course, very important and the most important. So what we are presenting here is technology which is going to give you the advantage of fast, better. Why we say better? Better because you have all this built-in predictive modeling capability, and cost-effective because you are going to have very cost-effective for gigabytes is gonna cost you just a penny. So you get cheap, faster, and better. So where we are going to focus here is in this slide what I have presented. we are going to focus, we are going to learn a bit to understand what is behind the technology, but our focus will be in the algorithms which are built in, like linear regression, decision tree, clustering, and you will be using this algorithm to extract insight from Twitter data. The assignment is very specific, it's not broad, so you will learn how to do, let's say, memory analytic with this tool, which is the tool part, but from analytical point of view, what you're going to do is sentimental analysis on Twitter data. So this week, we start to understand the tool, and next week we proceed with what is the analytical part of the work, which is sentimental analysis on Twitter data. Any question up to here? If we don't have more questions, I'm going to give you, the word to Elena. And before giving her for a walkthrough, she's going to help you to get faster. This is like in addition to help you overcome the hurdle to understand this new tool and to be able to use the minimum capability to do decent analysis with additional walkthrough to dashDB. But the most important thing is, think about the following. Working in the cloud is not like working in your personal computer. In your personal computer, you work on something, you close the browser and gone. In the cloud, things are not working this way. These are processes there, and until, even if you close your browser, when you return, your process is still alive. So you have to keep this in mind, and every time, and pay attention to the very, in first look, not significant point in the walkthrough instruction. Each point is important. I cannot stress more how important is you follow everything step by step. And why? Because in the cloud, the way they are deployed, this is not your personal computer. You have engine, you have storage, and this is, let's say, working massive parallel processing. So everything, when you start a service, this is your service with your login information, and this service, in most of the cases, will run until you stop the service. So keep all this in mind, and with no more, I'm giving the word to Elena to end. In meantime, Elena, are you ready?
I'm here, yes. So I will share the screen, yes.
Okay, let me see how I can give you where you are. Oh, okay.
I'm here.
You're down by alphabetical order.
So,
just a second, it's coming.
So basically, what I wanted to say, guys, you want to make sure that you really plan, because sometimes it could take a little patience, and you'll see why when you start working on it.
Okay, let's do the following. Because you're not going to be, I uploaded the presentation, so speak for these two slides, and then when you go to the browser, I'm going to give you the ball. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So basically, yes. What it says in here, and I put it big, and I could even put it bigger, but forget that you have a back button. We are not going to use the browser back button, just you don't have it, disable it, right? And now the second picture shows what else not to do. You'll see it will be using the RStudio on a server. It really does not like when you close the browser tab. So don't do it. We will need to exit the RStudio properly. otherwise, when you try to log back in, they go into a problem. It's going to take a long time to load. Trust me. Now, there are going to be some sequel in this assignment, and no matter how I try to explain it, every semester somebody always, at least one person, puts a sequel in Word, and when you do that, the special characters got introduced, and the code no longer becomes runnable, and it's very difficult to fix. One example would be quotes, right? Microsoft Word quotes. But there could be more, and some of these characters are invisible. We cannot see them, so the code is hard to fix, and you have to do it all over. Now, do not install any R packages unless you really have to. Okay? Just try not to do it. It takes a long time, right? It's because it has to write. It's not the same as you're installing it to your local PC. It has to create some directories internally. Now, you should not be waiting until the last minute to ask for assistance. We have 2 instructors and 2 TAs in this class for a reason. And the reason is we want to make sure that you ask for help, right? So, now another very important point is that you don't want to attempt to work on this assignment from your work computer, because some employers, they block certain web pages. dashDB could be one of them, right? So I guess next slide is going to be assignment do's, right? So you want to save a copy of your code just in case, save it to your local PC. You do it just by copy paste. You're going to use the notepad or textpad, or there should be a text editor on Mac. I don't have Mac, so somebody who has Mac would probably know it. It's not Microsoft Word, not any rich Microsoft editor won't do it. You want to make sure you use something like a Notepad, Notepad++, that will work. You will exit RStudio properly. You can type a Q command, or you're going to use the menu. You will post your questions in the classroom, and you will go beyond examples in the walkthrough, and you will plan ahead. Right? So everybody can make a promise to me today that you will plan ahead. All right? So I guess it's time to share the screen, right?
Yeah, coming.
Yeah.
In the meantime, let's see. I see a question about security. Let me tell you, I'm just coming for already security issue in the cloud are much better than the security issue if you as a company are running everything on premise in your server, because the cloud gives you certain capability which you do not have in, let's say, in the regular setting of a network of computers in your company. So regarding security, the advancements are huge, and you shouldn't be concerned because everything is encrypted. Even you can opt not to decrypt anything. It depends what type of processing you are doing. So in general, of course, there are always challenges, but for us, for what we are doing, there is not a problem from security point of view, because none of us is going to get data from a company which we are not permitted to use and to disclose anything. We're working in this class with public data, so this is not going to be a problem. But in general, I want to point and stress on this. Cloud is already more secure than on-premise server in a company in general. Of course, they are very, let's say, DoD, Pentagon, they are not going to go to the public cloud for many different reasons, because there is not such a thing as 100% security. But there is a private cloud. Now, why we are in public cloud? In public cloud, there is high value of security, for the public data we are working with is perfect. Now, for future work, if you work for a company, you have to analyze. You want to go to public cloud, to private cloud, to hybrid, or you have something in the public, something in the private, but the security is advancing with enormous step for the cloud. So that is what I have about this. Elena, please continue.
Yes. So this is important. Here is your catalog in Bluemix, right? You see two dashDB services, but what you want is dashDB for analytics. So you're gonna click here, right? I'm not gonna edit because I already edited, but I'm just gonna show you what you'll need to do. Select this one. Don't worry, you won't be charged $50, but that's gonna be the case only if you did not provide the credit card. If you did not provide the credit card, you won't be charged so. Okay, so that's what you'll do is make sure that this is selected by default and you're gonna hit create. I won't do it because I already have it edited on my dashboard. So now what I'll do, I'm gonna go to dashboard and I'll show you something else. It's important. So I'm gonna scroll down, I'll find my service, right? It's gonna be dashDB. Okay, here it is. So now what I'll do, I have to click on it just to open up the service launch page. And you're gonna see this manage. This is how you would start the program. You would click on open. But before you do that, I need to point out something important. Service credentials. When you first add this application to your dashboard, there will be no credentials, but you have to create one. So you would just click on new, right? You would click on new, and you would click on add. I'm not gonna add now, but that is how you would do it. Now, what you'll need to do is you'll need to click on view credentials, and you'll need to write down your username and password. Your username is basically your database schema name, right? And this is your password. Very important. It's a two-factor authentication. First, you log into Bluemix, right? But you will need this username and this password to log into RStudio within Bluemix. So you can copy and paste to the any text editor or write it down, whatever works for you. But you need this username and password, right? Next, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to Manage and you're gonna click on Open. And when you do that, this application, dashDB, will open. It may take a little while. So here, this is going to be your Bluemix ID username, right? Here is to monitor it's how much space you have used. In my case, I've used 1%. It's because I've been doing something here. Now, here, this is your main menu, Home, Tables. When you click on Tables, you will be able to preview the tables that you have. Now, do you remember I just told you to write down your username? This is your schema name. Your username is essentially your database schema name. Load part, we use this menu to load data. Run SQL, it's a menu we use to run the queries against our tables. Analytics, we use our scripts interface to run the scripts, and I'll show you, right? So to start with, we have to load our data, and I'll show you how to do that. You have a walkthrough, and the walkthrough shows you how to load the airline data. First, what you did was you downloaded it. What's that? Oh yes, yes, that's a good question. You asked excellent question. For your RStudio, yes, your username and password will stay the same each time, but you have to write it down. Yes, your credentials for RStudio will stay the same, but you need to know what the credentials are, right? So now, look at this, load and load from desktop. That's what I'll choose. But for your walkthrough, this is what was done. Your data set came from Kaggle, right? So what I did was I uploaded a copy of the data from this web page to Leo. You will download it from Leo, and you will upload it here. You will upload it, and as you do that, the table in the database will be created. And a little bit earlier tonight, Aya asked me, why are we uploading from the desktop? Well, earlier, about a month ago, it was possible to run a service here that would load the data directly into tables. Unfortunately, the service was retired. So what we have to do is we have to take a spreadsheet with Twitter data, and we have to upload it here. So to do this, you can just drag and drop this file in this middle area. Alternatively, you can click here and select Choose Files. Choose Files. Since I already have the airline data uploaded, I'm going to show you on a different file now. I picked up the Apple Computer Sentiment. This is one of the choices you have for the assignment 2, right? So now what you have several options here. Does the first data row in the file contain the column names? I think it does. And then you hit yes. Now keep everything else as is. Your file is a comma delimited, right? Because it's a CSV, right? So CSV stands for comma delimited. In general, it's possible to have a tab delimited or something else. Next, you would have to specify if your file has dates, right? And then you have to specify the format for date. I'm going to leave it as is. But in general, if I had time, I would have opened the file and I would have checked. See, this 4-letter Y stands for 4-digit year, MM means 2-digit month, and D means 2-digit day, right? So what you have to check which of the formats are more likely your dates are in. You want to make sure that all dates in a data file have the same format. You could have the column that contains just the date part of the date. You could have a column that contains only the timestamp, and you could have a column that contains both date and time, right? So you want to pick the format as close as possible if there are dates, right? Once you're done, you're gonna hit the preview. So now, preview, the data is not in a database yet. It's just sitting in some type of buffer. It's just showing me what's gonna happen when I load my data, right? So here, basically, it's showing me my column names and it's giving me the data preview, right? For the sentiment, I wanted to point out that it could be, the values could vary from the data set. In the data set that you have in the walkthrough, it's positive, neutral, and negative. It's highly possible that it could be numbers from 1 to 3, right? So sometimes you have to rate how you like something on a scale from 1 to 3. That's also sentimental analysis. So just something for you to keep in mind, right? It could be a number, or it could be positive, could be called as friendly. So now what we'll do is, you like the way it looks like, right? And the preview shows only the first 10 data rows. I can go ahead and hit next. Next screen is to choose the target. Here, you could load to an existing table, or you can create a new table. The reason you could load to existing table is that suppose that you have 2 samples of data, right? And to load the second sample, you don't want to create a brand new table. You want to load to existing table. It's hardly possible. But at the moment, I'm going to say create new table, and I'm going to hit next. Right? So right now, it's going to create a table preview for me. There we go. At this point, here is my table name. I can keep this as is, or I can rename it to something more user-friendly. One thing here to keep in mind is that the way I name it, right, if the name is super long, that's what I'll have to be typing. Oh, excellent question, I'll get to it. So, if I'll be typing right? If I'm going to write my queries, if I'm going to write our script, this is the name that I'm going to type, right? Well, I can always rename my data frame in R, but here at this point, you can change the column name. Now, I had an excellent question. The question is if I can modify my data, not from the preview. No, 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 you cannot do that. You cannot modify it from the preview, right? But what you could do here is that you can change the data types, right? Like sometimes your data is numeric, but for some reason it's reading it as character. I could go in and change it. Varchar is a variable character. So what it does is, if it's set to 144, it means the field width could be up to 144. But if my field contains only 50 characters, the memory will be allocated for 50, right? So, but if I have the data type character instead of varchar, if it's a character 144, then the space allocated will always be 144, regardless of, it does not matter if the actual value is less than 144. So that's the difference between character and var character. So here are my columns. This is a table name. Suppose that I'm happy. I'm going to click finish. Very important. When the load is complete, you want to take a screenshot, right? You want to take a screenshot where the load is complete. If you choose to create a new table, what was that? Let me open up the chart. Okay, so the question is, if you choose to create a new table for the second part of the same data, how does the application, this is an excellent, how does the application handle it? This is excellent. I'm glad somebody asked me. You can have only one table with the same name. When I load the data, when I load the second part of the data into a new table, I would have to use a different table name. In my queries, suppose that I have a second data set, right? I mean, the second data sample. In my queries, I can do a union. You can do a union when you select from two tables, right? There is a way to do it. It's not called a join, that's called a union. Join is called when you join two tables based on values of the column, right? But it's a union. The union is when you take records sort of like from two tables, but you're not joining them on a common column. Like for example, suppose that you have a list of names of professors and list of names of students, and if you want to list all names, you're gonna do the union. You're pulling names from one table and pulling names from another table, right? So now here I got an error message. It says column name is invalid. Okay, so now I have to go back and I have to rename my columns. Jesus, I'm so glad that I got this error. So that way, when you get it, you will remember that Elena got it. What I have to do is, it did not like that my column name started with an underscore. So let me just rename this. A is going to stand for an apple. Basically, there are some rules for naming the columns in the database. And Elena failed her database test, right? Because I missed it. The column names cannot start with an underscore. So I'll just go ahead and quickly rename it. If you receive this error, take note, if you receive this error that I just got, it means that the column name does not follow the naming convention in the database, right? So if you get this error, you will fix it. Looks like we are good to go. I think we should be good to go now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click finish. So this would have been part of my answer to the last question on the tutorial. A challenge that I ran into as I worked on the assignment. That's a challenge. I got this error message, right? How did I resolve it? Well, I just needed a little refresher on the column naming convention. And I renamed it, and now it's starting to load. This is a progress, right? We need to be patient here, and when this load is done, you need to take a screenshot of this screen. Very important, because you really cannot come back to this screen. You want to take this screenshot, and it's part of the assignment deliverable, right? Now, somebody asked me about this error. Well, what it means is that there could be a record or a few records that did not load as expected. And to get more details, you can view the log. Right? If you click on view the log, you can see that the file will open up. And for the purpose of this class, it does not really matter. But if you were doing it for the database project, you would probably want to go in and check which record failed and why they failed, right? You would probably want to go in and see what can be done to fix. But in this class, we're just going to ignore it, right? For the purpose of this class, let's not worry about this. We're going to work with data that got loaded. So here, you want to look at these numbers, the number of rows in the input file and number of rows that got actually loaded. Here, this is your username. The database schema is a username. This is a table name where I loaded my data. Now, if I scroll down, this is a table preview. This is how it looks like, right? So from here, I could apply my filters, and I can just preview a subset, or I can even download if I want to, but it does not make sense at the moment, right? So here, it's just showing me the preview always usually shows the first 100. Now what I can do, suppose that I'm ready, right? I wrote down what I need, and now, what is it? Okay, I see a question. Let me hit on a chat. Are there constraints involved in the process? Hello, can you hear me? Richard, do you hear me? Elena, do you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we
Yes,
can
I
hear you.
can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, excellent, because somebody lost the audio. Okay, constraints. This is an excellent question about the constraints. There are no constraints. It's because you're creating a brand new table from scratch. Behind the scene, dashDB created a table for me. All right? So in here, there are no constraints. But if you had the constraints, there is more than one way to handle. The constraints could be defined as deferred. So basically, the whole load runs, and the constraint got checked at the end of the load. Or the constraints could be applied as each record gets loaded once at a time. Well, this is in general how it happens in the database. There are two types. You can define the constraints in the way that the load finished, and after that the validation runs, or it can be done a row at a time. But in this case, there are no constraints. Nothing to worry about, because you're creating the loader behind the scene is creating a brand new table, right? So now you want to check what the table looks like, right? You click on the tables, and here, this is your username, right? Because you have access to some sample schemas as well. Those are the sample tables. But this is your username. Now, from the drop-down, you want to select the table. In your walkthrough, this is a table, airline sentiment. All right? So now, if you see, there are no constraints. In general, a table will have a primary key. A primary key is a unique identifier, right? So, for example, in your university, you have a unique student ID, right? Here, I would think that tweet ID would be unique identifier, although we not explicitly defined it as a primary key. Here, this is a very important term, null. In database, null means missing value. It's a representation. The column is nullable. The column allows null. It means that the value can be missing. If the column is defined as not null, it means that you cannot insert the data row with a missing value unless you can define the default. It's also in a really database, it's also possible to set a default when the value is not specified. All right? So here, this is called metadata. It's a data about your table. It's a column names, the column data type. The length is the maximum number of characters that could fit in. For the decimals, you have also the scale, right? So this is the data about your data. What else you have? You can browse data here, right? So this is a data preview, and you can click on apply. So that's basically just data subset, but you're not going to be able, don't even attempt to do that. That's not going to get count. Do not attempt to compare row by row with the rows in a spreadsheet as part of the load validation. This is no go, right? To do the validation, you would probably want to check the row counts. You can do the frequency distribution. Like, for example, how many airline sentiments are negative, how many are positive, right? So this is how you want to do the comparison. You want to look for the invalid values, and to do that, you will just run the frequency counts. Now, what else you could do is you could click on a column to learn more information about column. Usually you can. But for this, for right now, for this specific purposes, let's move on to the SQL. Run SQL. This allows to actually select and display data from the database. SQL statements allow selecting data from the database. Every query must have select and from. It just must. You cannot have a valid query without select and from clause. So after the select clause, you specify the columns that you want to select, right? And after the from clause, you specify the table name. So here, what I'm saying is that I want to select my user time zone this is a view. So let's delete this here, from airline sentiment. I'll show you a view shortly. So here is the table name, airline sentiment, and what this query will do is it will select this field for all rows, right? So here I have several buttons. I have an option to run everything. I have an option to run only selected query. I can run starting from my cursor down. But at this moment, let's just run this query here. I'm just hit run selected. I want to show you what's going to happen. But for you, you want to make sure that you save a copy of your queries. Because as soon as you log out, this will be gone. What I did on my end, I have this editor here. Oops, this is the R code. Oops. So here it is. So what I did was I pasted my code in a text pad, but you can also use the Notepad, or you can use the Notepad Plus. That one is free if you're Windows user. Here, what I see is, this is one query that I just ran. And I have a log, and in the log, I can find out what actually happened. This is really useful when you have an error message. So now what it says is that I ran one query, it ran successfully, and here is my query that I ran, right? And here it tells me the time and how long it took to run. So let's click OK to close this out. How do I see the data now? I click here, I can click here, or I can click on the data tab. Is it okay to use MySQL? Well, this is DB2. You have to use SQL here. Otherwise, how are you going to use MySQL? You need to use the SQL here. So now I'm going to click data. And see this? This is the preview. It's showing the time zone. It's exactly what I wanted to select. And remember, null. Null means that missing value. That's a database terminology. It means missing value, right? So when you get to the R part of this tutorial, you will see that you have some invalid values that were loaded, right? There are some invalid sentiment values. Well, I'm telling this because I already know, right? It's because I already know. I did some homework. But just to show you, I can do this. I can just run this query to show you. So here what I'm doing is that select star, wildcard star means everything. I want to select every single column from this table where the where condition filters the rows. So here I want to select all rows where the sentiment is not in any of these values, right? And I'll show you that there are invalid values here. I want to select all rows where the sentiment is not in, and here is a list of values, right? Not in. Let me run this, and I wanted to show you run, select it. It's because I did some homework, so that's how I know. But in your assignment, you will need to do some exploration to see what I just showed you now. Let me click on data. See this? That was why it was airing out. It's these rows here. It's these rows that we are going to skip. Yeah. Something got loaded, something got misplaced, something wrong in the file perhaps, or something the loader messed up because of these characters. You see this? So in the real world, you would probably look at the data and see what you could do to fix it. But here, there are two ways to ignore it. And I'll show you the way I did not do in a walkthrough. You could create a view, right? You could create a view, and inside the view, you're pulling only valid data that you want to work with. So here, the view definition will be select everything from airlight sentiment where the sentiment is any of these values, right? And then I can, instead of importing my table to the R, I can import the view, right? So this is an alternative. But at the time when I was writing the walkthrough, at that specific time, I did not know about, I did not have the details on what data I have invalid. I could have done more exploration, but this just gives you an example of how to create a database view. A database view is a virtual table, all right? Yes, I was just thinking to use MySQL, but where are you going to use MySQL? You won't be able to use MySQL because you'll need to be able to connect to this database in here. The whole purpose is to use the in-memory analytics, right? But the syntax, once you have the syntax, it's going to be really similar because I work with Oracle on a daily basis. So there is a similar syntax here. Where clause, from clause, right? So here, I wanted to point out create or replace view because it's highly possible that I already have a view with the same name. If I already have a view with the same name, I have to drop it before I can create it. But, warning, if you drop the view, you would have to rebuild everything else that depends on the view, including the permissions. Well, it's a long story behind the view. So here you want to use create or replace. Create or replace just replaces the view definition, right? But it's going to preserve all of the permissions defined in the view. The view is useful for security reasons, right? Like for example, suppose that I don't want a manual to see bad data. What I'll do is I'll create this view and I give him access specifically to this view, right? Just an example. Now, let me run this. Oops. So, and what I'm doing here right here, I'm running the query against the view. And I want to count the number of tweets per airline. So to do this, select, what do I want to select? I want to select my airline. Oh, actually, this is rather sentiment. This is sentiment. I'll get to airline example later. In this example, I want to count how many positive, negative, and neutral posts I have per sentiment. Select, what do I select? I want to display the sentiment. I want to display the count, right? Well, I just put count 1, but you can put count primary key, whatever the key is. It does not matter. This is a column alias, because on my output, I don't want to see it as count 1. This is the alias from, and here I'm saying group by, because I want to count, I want to have the count by airline sentiment. Airline sentiment is one of the fields, right? And in the second example, this example is just okay. What I'll have to do is I'll have to delete the blank lines just to scroll to it. Okay, I'll have to scroll to show you that example. But anyhow, let's run this first. Let's run this one first, and then I'll run another one for you. So let's run this. Let's create a view, and let's run this first. I selected 2 statements, and I'm going to do run selected, right? I created a view, and I'm pulling the data from the view. It's because I want to exclude the data that I did not want to include, right? So here, I started the SQL job, so to speak, and here I'm running 2 queries. They're both finished, right? Why there is no data link in here? It's because here I'm not selecting data. Here I'm creating a view. A view is a database object. If you notice, when I hover, it's showing me the code that I wrote to create that view. It's a database object. It's a virtual table. Here is a query that I ran against the view. And I can click on data, and this is what it did. It created the number of tweets per each sentiment. Later, you will be doing something similar with R. It's a table command in R, right? So what you could do is you could compare this output with the output that you receive from the table command in R. It's just an option, right? The same analysis can be done, similar analysis can be done in R and in SQL, right? But here you don't have a visualization. If I want to do a pie chart, for instance, I cannot do it in SQL, right? So now let me minimize it. There were additional examples here. I can do the counts by the time zone, right? I can do the count by the time zone. But here is a little trick here. Look, I'm selecting the time zone, and I'm counting the number of tweets, right? I'm grouping by user time zone. But I want to see only the time zones that have at least 10 counts. Here is the difference between where and having. Very important. Where clause eliminates individual rows. Having clause eliminates the groups. In other words, here, behind the scene, query is going to count how many tweets I have per airline, right? And after that, it's going to eliminate the airlines that don't meet this condition. Having is for groups. Where clause is for individual rows, right? So we have select, from, where, group by, having. And there is also order by. Order by lets you sort. You use it for sorting, right? I can do this. I can order by user time zone, right? Just to show you what you can do. So let me go ahead and run it. But if I wanted to sort it by this column, right, I could also put the column position. In the order by clause, I can put column name or column position, right? Let me go ahead and let's run this thing here. And I'm going to do run selected. There we go. And at the same time, what I should be doing, I should be saving a local copy of these queries. So now let's look at data. And also, when you have more than one query especially, you want to make sure that each select statement ends with a semicolon. So see this over here, this is a list of time zones that have more than 10 tweets, right? For your assignment 2, you want to write the meaningful query. The query has to have a purpose, right? For instance, selecting all data from the table does not have a specific purpose. As a manager, for example, I may want to know which time zone has the most number of complaints or something like that, the most number of negative tweet sentiments. I want to see which complaint is dominant in a certain area, right? If you notice, this specific data set, it also tracks, if the sentiment is negative, it also tracks the reason why the customer complained, right? So sometimes I can run a query like that. I want to see the dominant complaint per airline, all right? So that's a good query. Yes, it's a little bit advanced, but you're gonna learn from it. The more you do it, the more you learn from it, right? And you can always reach out to me or Linus when you need assistance with SQL or with R, with this assignment. Now, I'm going to show you R part. You're gonna go to Analytics, R scripts. Analytics, R scripts. That will take you to this nice interface. Well, what you need to do, the first step is you want to load the data into R. And to do that, we have to generate a script. Watch. I click on Import, right? I just have to click on Import. And here, oops, not, oh, okay, I lied. You hit on a plus, sorry. I'm so sorry, you hit on a plus. Do not click Import, click on a plus. On a plus sign. All right, excellent. So what it did was, it created, now we have to, okay, look, this is your username, right? What you have to do is you have to select the table. In this case, it's an airline sentiment, right? I select the table, and now it's going to take a while to load, but it's going to list, over here, it's going to list all columns for me, right? I select what I want, and deselect what I don't want, and I click Apply. R will write a script for me. But, oops, here, this, what does this code do? Let's look at this. Here, this is a package. IBM DBR is a package that is used to read data from database into R. This here is establishing the connection to the database. And here it's reading data into the data frame. But I don't like this name. I want to use it something very descriptive. So if you could see in some of my scripts, what I did was I renamed this. I just called it a sentiment. You can rename it manually, right? This is what I was suggesting. I just renamed it manually. And very important, you need to save this. So here it is. This is a save button. And it's not going to save it on your desktop. It will save it in a project or in your dashDB. So here I'm just doing a demo, right? And now I'm going to hit OK, and I'll show you where it saved this. Okay. Okay, excellent. So now let me show you something else. Just in case, if you want to create a view and also load the data from the view, you can do it also this way. Look, add a data frame, right? And you can pick a view. Not a problem. I could pick my view to start with. Just for the naming convention purposes, I like to prefix my views with v_. This is just a naming convention. So that way, for myself, I would know it's a view, right? So this is how you would do it. You would just wait for it to load, and you would select the columns that you want, deselect what you don't want, and you're going to click apply, right? Well, I'm not going to do it now, but I'm just showing you in general what you can do. Now, you can do your work and run your queries here. Yes, you can. And the output will be in the output tab, and all your plots will show in the plots. But I understand that RStudio is more user-friendly. Here, something to keep in mind, supported browsers are Firefox and Chrome. Patience is a virtue. It takes some time to load, right? Especially after the first login. So now let me do this. Let me click on RStudio. Is it possible to get the table name? Okay, so let me see the question while this is loading. Oh, come on, chat. Okay, is it possible to change the table name right there? Well, view is an object. View is an object, right? It's different from the table. You could alternatively, instead of uploading the table, it is possible to upload the data from the view instead of the table. What do you mean, change the table name right there to a view? Well, the thing is, you have to, if you want to pull from a view, you need to pull from a view. It's a different. When you create the data frame, you explicitly need to select a view, because my columns in a view not necessarily the same as in the table, right? I have several options. I could, my first option would be to write the code myself, right? Or I can rely on this interface to do it. Oh, see, I made a mistake. I already had RStudio open. But I'm not gonna, okay, I'll just continue from whatever it is. Now, what I want you to see is that this interface is similar to what you have seen on your homework assignments, right? So you have, when you first log in, when you log in for the first time, you're not gonna see this script. You're not gonna see this. This here will be closed. You will see the console, and this is it. You will see the console, and you're not gonna see any of this, right? You're not gonna see this. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, right? The broom deletes all. Oops. Reconnect. Once in a while you may get this. Anyway, it's because I had two windows open, that's the problem. But anyway, when you log in, you will not see any of this. You will not see any of this. I'm deleting this. What you will see is that you will see the... Okay. Now, let's not delete it. Okay, what you will see is that you will see the file. You will see these files, right? This is a file that I just created, demo.script. I would have to click on it, and the file will open into the source window. It will open into the source window. It kicked me out. It's because I made a mistake. I had two windows open. So let's... What I just did, don't do it, okay? What I just did, don't do it. You always want to have one window open, right? Okay, now, I click here, and my file just opened here, right? You saw the problem, I just showed what I did. Now, here, you would just run the script the way you would usually run the script, right? You would hit run, right? This is a script that you created. Now, very important, whenever you make a change to the script, you save it, right? If you go here and make a change here, right, through this interface, you would have to have a way to make sure that it's synchronized, right? You would have to reload it. Well, the bottom line is try not to change the same code from more than one window. it's gonna cause problems, right? Let's see if it lets me do this now. Yes, it did it now. Okay, so this is how you're gonna start with, right? This is the airline sentiment. I added more stuff in there, but in the beginning, when I started, this piece here was all I had. This part was all I had, right? Now, something else to keep in mind. This is very important. The version of R installed on this server might not be the latest. So always, whenever you use the server version, you always want to check which version of R you're running here. This becomes really important, right? 3.2.1. So this is another reason I ask you, please don't install any packages unless you really have to. It's because we have to pay attention to what version we install, and there is more. There is more to it. So now, what you need to do is you need to run these three lines, right? This is a connection variable. Now I'm connecting to the database, right? And here, this will create our data frame. Right? So here is again, this is my environment window, and I have the number of observation, number of variables, right? Here I'm showing you the nrow command to display the number of rows. In your homework assignment, you have something similar. I think it's dimension, but it does not matter. But what you need to do is you need to run the commands that you're asked to run, and you need to put the screenshot of the output, right? Now what I'm doing here, I'm going to create a backup, right? Well, it's just me. I don't like to edit the data without making a backup. It's me. So here, this is just a backup for the backup purposes. That is what I did. This is just a copy. Now let me show you exactly what I showed you in the SQL. If I run this table command on the airline sentiment, do you see what happens? This is a problem. So what I did was, this is how you would do it in R. I want to eliminate my bad values. I want to keep the sentiment only with the values positive, neutral, or negative, right? So this is the R command, right? So it's a little bit similar to what we did in the view. However, it would have been better. It's more efficient to do it in the view because in general, as a programmer, as an analyst rather, you don't want to worry about cleaning up the data, and you don't want to worry about where the data is stored, especially if the data is stored in multiple tables. You want to have a view and a view joining the tables. Right, so now I'm going to clean up. I'm going to remove the dirty data. But to find out that there is a dirty data, I had to do a little bit of playing around. I did some homework. Now here, this one is just the frequency count by airline, right? I can do the frequency count by sentiment, right? So this command leads to the pie chart, right? Just remember it. The pie chart takes this command as an input. Well, I'm not going to give you the solution, but I'm going to give you the similar. This is for the airline. I gave you a similar pie chart for the airline, and your task is to do it for the sentiment. What you could also do is you can play around with the radius, you can play around with colors. This is using the default colors. You can change it. So this is for you to play around with. I'm just showing you in general what can be done, but your task is to go beyond. You can use this package, PLYR. This package is installed already. It's one of the built-in packages, but what you'll need to do is you can just load it. And this is a good one because I can do different aggregations, all right? So here I can just do, I'm storing my counts, right? What I'm doing here is that I'm trying to count the number of complaints, the number of negative complaints per reason, right? There are different reasons people did not like the airlines. And some reasons are flight delay, the bad customer service, and so on, right? So I'm storing this in a variable. And here I'm sorting it. And I'm displaying it, right? So this is basically what this package allows you to do. It's more on counts, and I can sort it, and so on. And here, I'm just listing the most frequent complaints by the airline, right? So here, in general, I'm listing the most frequent complaints, and I can break it down further. I can break it by the airlines, right? And I can just show the first 15. So there we go. Now, why do I see NA? Well, it's because some of my data, it has positive sentiment and neutral. If the sentiment is positive or neutral, the value is blank or NA, right? For your own exercise, let's say it's going to be ungraded exercise for you, try to display this data, the same thing, without NAs. This is for you, just practice, right? All right, so here the ggplot, I believe it's loaded in memory by default, but here I'm just showing you an example, and you can use ggplot. And if you are an R guru, you can go more in depth with this and play around with different colors. Oh, looks like I would have to adjust the margins. That's one reason it does not show anything. I would have to reset the device and adjust the margins. I would have to play with it. But beware this command, it just resets, it deletes all plots. It could delete all plots that you have. So now I can do this. Let's see if that works. But you would need to play around with the plot margins. Okay. No luck, but I believe I may have had this command somewhere. Yeah. But anyway, what I'm saying is that it's highly possible that you would be getting these little things here and there. And I know that the reason is the margins. The reason is the margins. So I had this somewhere here, here, here. I don't, okay. Anyway, basically, to change the margins, it's this PAR, and then it's MAR equals, and then this is a list, oops, and this is a list, see, and I think it's 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah, I think it's like this. Yeah, so this is going to change my margins of the plot, and then I can run P again to do the plot. Yeah. And then I run it again. Anyway, you need to play with it. You need to play with the margins. Well, I would have to play around. Oh, here it is. I got it. See this? So some of you ran into the same issue with your last homework assignment. It's because my margins were too big. My margins were too large. That's a reason it would not show the plot. So that's what I just did. I adjusted my margins, and it showed me the plot. And for you, what you could also do is you could plot the counts by geographical location. It's way much more what you can do. And this one, I'm just trying to do more summaries. Right? I'm trying to just do the counts by negative reason. And I'm counting, this is what it does here. I'm counting the number of retweets by negative reason. So there are some posts where the sentiment is negative, right? And there is a different reason. And I want to sum the retweets. For example, just a hypothetical example. Suppose that Linish posted the message bad flight, and he got 5 retweets, right? Emmanuel also posted bad flights. He got 10 retweets. So if we sum up, it's going to be the sum here, right? This is what it's doing. It's going through the whole data set and doing the sums. Here is an again. Your ungraded exercise is to get rid of this NA. You would have to apply some subsetting, right? You can do conditional subset. You can select where the sentiment is just negative, right? Remember from the R walkthrough? Now, what you could do is, I'm going to show you how to run this method without with default input parameters. Your homework is to review which input parameters are available for a priori rules and how to interpret the rules. I'm going to leave it for you to review. It's your homework. But in general here, I'm just showing you that to run this method, you need a rules package which is there already, and you also need a rules viz package to visualize the rules. The reason I'm showing you this is because I want to show you a very important data preprocessing step. If you notice here, the data type for the airline is a character. I want to convert it to factor. It's because the method does not work, a priori ruled method does not work with character data. What I'm doing here, I'm creating a new data frame, and I'm pulling all rows and fields listed here. Do you remember C command? It creates a list. So here is a list of fields that I want, right? And I want all rows. I'm creating a new data frame, right? So it's supposed to create it. It's going to be here. Now what I do is I'm going to change all of these variables to the factor. I just want to change this. Run. Now here, I want to use the retweet count. I had to do a little bit of homework on this one, because when you run the summary command, you will see the distribution for this. I should have put this summary. And you'll see the reason. So if I do this, you will see, actually, let's do not the summary, let's try table. I wanted to see what happened in here. I wanted you to see this. It's a skewed, the distribution is skewed. See this? This is a number, I have about almost 14,000, 0. I have 610 of ones, right? And I have 66, I have 22. Instead of making each of these a separate value, what I did was I'm using the cut command to discretize this. I want to have 0 count, right? 0 together, and then I want to have 1 to 2 and greater than 2, I believe. Let's see what happens. Run. And now let's see again. Yes, so this is what I did here. I grouped. I have 0, I have 1, and 2 or more. This is what I did. But I had to do some homework to decide to make this decision, right? It's because the data is skewed, so that's one reason. Here, I'm running the method. I did not specify any support or anything. I did not specify any parameters. So it's going to run by default. And I'm storing the result in a variable called rules. And you want to look at how many rules. I got 23. It's highly possible that you will not get any for your data. So if that's the case, you would need to adjust the input parameters. And I'm leaving this for the homework, right? I'm just showing you how to run this. To view the rules, remember the inspect command. You run inspect command, and here I specify that I want only the first 15. To visualize the rules, you would need to load this package in memory, right? I'm going to hit library to load it. You get this message here. Something I need to tell you, and I had a lot of similar questions from the last assignment. This is in red. Some error messages are just informative, some error messages are warnings, and some error messages are the errors. In this case, I don't need to worry about it because, well, it's showing me that another package that I already had loaded had the function with the same name as in the arrows with package. But since it's a function that I'm not using, well, I don't care, I can just ignore it. Now, and here is the plot, right? If you notice, your walkthrough has an ungraded exercise. It's an ungraded, but it will help you with assignment. And in there, the suggestion is to explore other visualizations. I'm giving you the group, right? And what I recommend you to do is, your best friend is a help command here. I want you to run the help command for the a priori rule. Remember, help command is a question mark a priori. And similar, you got a help tab, and you got some examples, right? And also, if you need a refresher, in the classroom, we have some resources on association rule. See this? Here is an example on a DAO dataset. This is a parameter, right, list. And here it's showing me the minimum support, minimum confidence, right, here. So this is showing me that it tells me to omit the rules with support below 0.5. It's just an example, right? So in your assignment, too, if you're doing the association rules, right, you would probably want to explain what these metrics are, why are we looking at more than one metrics, what are the drawbacks and limitations of each metrics, and why do I need to look at least 3, right? Think about it. If the rule is frequent, is it necessarily important? Could there be less frequent rules that are important? That's something for you to think about, right? So you could do that, and I think I had some additional code. Oh, this is just some additional stuff that you could do. Yeah. You could just do the different types of visualizations. Oh, this one, I like this one. It's from the ggplot. It took a little bit of playing around to get it to work, but I think I kind of like this plot. What it does is it shows me the frequency counts, but it also does the color code. See this? It shows me the number of tweets per error line, but it also does the color code per sentiment. Yeah, so that's what it does. Now, you might be wondering how I can save this script. I click here. This is how I save it. But remember, where did it save it? It did not save it on your local PC, right? You could just physically copy and paste the code to your editor. This is just in case, right? And you will be submitting for your assignment too. You'll be submitting your R script as well. R script, SQL, and also you'll be discussing the outputs in a paper, right? So you saw it. The RStudio now stopped hicking up on me, right? In the beginning, it was not working. It was not working because I had it open in 2 windows. No 2 windows, only 1 window, right? And we are not doing this. We're not closing the tab like this, right? Something to keep in mind, when you return on next session, R will try to restore itself to the state where you stopped. So if you have something that's space consuming and something that you're not using, you may want to consider removing it from memory. It's an RM command, right? RM, and in parentheses you specify what you want to remove, right? Because on your next login, R will try to restore it, right? So now, to submit, to include the plots in your submission, there are several options, right? You can just take a screenshot, or Windows users, you're gonna like this tool, Sleep into New, and you just select the area, right? And that's your screenshot, and you can highlight parts of it. Windows users, you're gonna like it. So now let's see. I had a question. Let me see here. What do you want us to use for ungraded exercise? Oh, Aya, that's excellent. If you look at the walkthrough, on the last page of the walkthrough file, there are some ungraded exercises to help you expand your knowledge. There are some for R and there are some for SQL. Well, it's just for you something extra and something that you could look into if you are doing, if the data you selected has something similar. Alright, if you're an R guru, if you're really good in R, this is what you could do. Notice that you have some geographical variables right here, right? It might be possible to do the geospatial analysis because you have some location here, right? It might be possible to do the map plot by location, sediments by location. But this is only if you are super, super good with R. I know that it's possible that some of you might be. In a prior semester, we had very experienced people who are very experienced with R and they wanted to really do something. So if you're really one of those people, you can do the geospatial analysis. You can just visualize the sediments per geographic area. There is a lot you can do here, so you just be creative. But for the ungraded part, I just gave you some ideas where you can expand your knowledge, right? Some extra queries that you can think about. It just, well, this is how it works. I gave you an example. You follow that example and you apply what you've learned to another data or to do another query. And the only way for you guys to learn the query is to do it. Well, I use the driving analogy as an example. How do you learn how to drive? Do you learn how to drive just by reading the book from motor vehicle things, the book of driving rules? Do you just learn it by reading the driving rules? Of course not. You learn how to drive just by getting in a car and driving. This is the same thing. You learn SQL by doing SQL, right? Nothing different about it. So, and SQL will help you in the next assignment as well. So, yep. So now it's a good opportunity to ask questions. We have some excellent questions, and I respect questions. I respect people who ask questions. Right? Questions? Yes. No, there are no dumb questions, Elizabeth. All questions are good questions. Trust me. There's no such a thing as a dumb question, Elizabeth. Go ahead and ask. Yes, you will use R in dashDB. That's an excellent point. You will use R in dashDB. Yes. Because the whole idea is it's in memory. It's a huge data set, right? And you also doing some stuff in the database. Yes, for this assignment, let's use dashDB. Yeah. But the concepts are similar. You still have the same interface, right? You still have all your windows. You still have your plots window. It's similar. You might not have, well, I realize that it's not the latest, the greatest, but you can do the work. You can do the work with the packages that you already have pre-installed. If you click on the package tab, it will show you what you have pre-installed. Don't pay attention to this part. This was me trying to do something. You're going to have system library right here. Right here. Now, to be quite honest, I want it. I wished I could do the text mining, but I would recommend you to stay away from it because of the complexity. TM package takes a long time to install because this is not meant for it. Alright? So we're not doing it this time. It's because you really, really need to have a deep knowledge of how to clean up, the sessions that did not terminate right, and more. It's very complex. And the text mining package has a lot of dependencies. And then when you try to install it, it will try to grab the latest version. And here is an older version. So that's the reason we're not using the text mining for this one. But, so don't, I do not get, do we use R or SQL? Oh, for ungraded? Oh, okay, sorry, I missed it. For ungraded exercises have some of them call for using R, and some of them call for using SQL. You would need to read a specific exercise. Some exercises explicitly say to write a query. When an exercise says to write a query, we use SQL. When an exercise says to write an R statement, we use an R. That's what we do. Ayo, did I answer the question now? Oh, okay, excellent. So basically, that's what the question was. When you use R, when you use SQL for ungraded part, it just says what to use explicitly, right? If it says write a query, then it's SQL. If it says to write an R, then it's R. Yeah, excellent. But in general, for yourself, if it's possible, you could try running the same statement in R and a similar statement to get a similar result in SQL to compare, just to cross-validate your work, right? It depends on your strongest area. Just for example, suppose you're like me, stronger in SQL, right? I would always write SQL. I would try to write SQL to validate my R work. And other way around, right? We all vary. Yeah. So that's a good way to practice your skills too when you do it on the two languages. Yeah. So let's see what other questions we have. If there are no questions, I start asking questions. How do they check the R version? That's a question from me, right? If there are no questions, I start asking questions. Remember what service you use, right? Because there are two dashDB services on the catalog. You want to use the one for analytics. Remember what not to do. This button here no longer exists. This X here no longer exists. So to exit RStudio, this is one way to do it. You go to File, Quit RStudio. This is how you exit RStudio. This is a proper way to exit RStudio. Now you want to say save. Let me cancel for a minute. And what is this r.data? It's this here. If this file gets corrupted on your next login, R will take a long time to load. So this is what happened to some people last semester who attempted to download the text mining packages, but a person did not just download it, they kept it in a script. So they kept on running the command repeatedly each time on a login, and that was not good. All right. So let me go ahead and try this. Let's do this. File, Quit RStudio, and we're gonna do the save. Oh, I forgot to point out. No, are you excellent questions? No, do not update the R version. Do not update the R version on the server. Don't do this, okay? Don't do this. So now I can close this. I forgot to point out something very important. Very important. When you launch the R Studio for the first time, right? Or if you launch it after restarting the browser, so to speak, you will be prompted to enter the password. You will be directed to the screen with the username and password, right? I was not prompted because I was already logged in this session. But when you launch the RStudio, you will be prompted to enter username and password. It's not your Bluemix password. This is not your Bluemix password. But what password is this? It's a password right here. service credentials, view credentials. It's this password. Okay, it's this password. It's this password. Oh, will I make our script available? Sure. I can go ahead. I'll post it as a script, definitely. I'll do that. Not a problem, Linda. That's a customer service. So now let me see the chat. I just tried to answer. Oh, excellent, excellent. Aya, thank you very much for answering my questions. Thank you. So, excellent. Aya, excellent job for paying attention. R.version, right. R.version command is going to give you the version of R. And I would say do not upgrade anything on the server. Try to avoid installing the packages unless you really have to. If you use naive Bayes method, yes, you would need to install one package, but it's just one, right? Any more questions? Questions. I love questions. What happens when I don't receive questions? I start asking questions, right? So you remember the credentials, right? The password for our studio, it's not your Bluemix password. It's not your Leo password. It's this password, right? We cannot go to our studio directly. We have to launch the dashDB first, right? You do not see the credential. Excellent, Elizabeth. Because when you launch the service for the first time, there will be no credential. What you need to do is you need to click on New Credential. You click on New Credential and then click Add. And that will add the credential. Let me click on Cancel now. You will see the credentials once you add them. This needs to be done only once. The first time you would need to create the credentials. Just click on New Credential and click Add, right? 2 clicks. And you'll be done with this part, right? It might be the easiest part of this assignment, right? So, anything else? Oh, another reason when we would need the credentials, I'll tell you. It's possible, in general, it's possible to load data from dashDB into other applications such as Tableau or Watson Analytics. You would use this information to set up your connection in another application. If I was going to analyze this data in IBM Watson Analytics, I would need this username, this password, and I would need my database URL, right? That's part of the configuration setting. Or sometimes it's possible to analyze the dashDB data from Spark. I know it's a possibility. So that's another reason where you would use these credentials. Okay? But for the RStudio, you need this username and password, right? But for anything that I explained today, if you need it repeated, please tell me. I will repeat it as many times as necessary. I want to make sure that everybody understands that at the time when everybody signs off today, that everybody understands what needs to be done, right? And if you run into an issue, document your solution. That's one reason for the last question. So you have it documented, right? How do you resolve it? Because then when you work on your assignment, if you run into the same problem, you'll be able to go back to your notes. So that's another reason for that question, right? Like one example was earlier when I tried to load tables, my table column name did not follow the naming convention, right? So here is a lesson. I know that the tables, the columns needs to follow certain naming conventions. They cannot start from underscore, right? That's an example of what you could write. Well, like anything else you would like me to explain? Anything unclear? Well, I realize that you still need your time to read it, but I would say our question and answer session does not end at the end of this session. You can always do the follow-up. Okay, I think I see a question about the credentials. What if for whatever reason we click on add credential more than once? Don't do it. I would say don't do it, but if you did it by accident, you can delete it. But don't do it. That's an easier answer, right? But if you did it, just delete the ones you don't use. Few more things to keep in mind is that you don't want to be accessing this on your work computer. It's not that your employee will come to your desk and say you are fired. No, it's because they won't be able to. Some employer networks, for security reasons, block this. It's highly possible, so do it at home. And also, regarding the connection speed, if it's possible, if your internet connection speed is not as fast, you could use the wired. Try using the wired. You can connect to the cable to the router, right? Try wired. If that is not possible, make sure that nobody is streaming videos while you're doing the homework, unless you have a high internet connection speed. Another thing, what I've been doing, I've been trying to minimize the number of applications that I have open at the same time while I'm on the cloud, right? I have a bad habit of having too many things open, but it's taken up the CPU on my PC. And I want to minimize the number of processes that I'm running in the background while I'm doing this work, right? I want to keep things running in parallel at minimum. So that way I can have the CPU to do this, right? So, anything else? Yelena, is there anything that we need to add to what I showed? Or Linish, is there anything I may have missed?
No, I think you covered it all. So it's really good.
What happens when nobody starts asking questions?
And Elena starts asking questions, and that's too bad.
Well, well, maybe it's good. But you never know if the questions that Yelena is asked as part of the...
Yeah, but then everybody gets in trouble, so it's better that we keep asking you questions.
Right. I guess so. But the question and answer session does not end tonight. It will continue in a discussion. So as you watch the recording, you can post your follow-up questions. Let's do it this way. You watch the recording, and I'll give you the script and the queries, and you will post your follow-up questions. How does it sound? Sounds reasonable? Sounds fair? Yeah. So, Yelena's questions. 2 things that you're not to do. 2 things that you're not going to do. Important. No back button. Not closing the tab, right? We're not going to paste our SQL into Microsoft Word, right? Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. We're not going to share in our RStudio credentials with classmates, right?
Do not update the version.
Excellent. Excellent. I forgot to add this to the slide. Right. We are not going to update the R version. We leave it as is. Yes. The only reason I ask you to check the R version is that because the package functionalities, the functions that you can use could vary based on the version. That's why I asked. Because sometimes you're trying to run something, but it's not available in the older version. So that's a reason, something to keep in mind. Yeah. Let's see what else, what questions we have. Is everybody awake?
You kept me awake, Elena. I don't know about others.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I speak usually loud. I'm a speaker without a microphone. I don't need a microphone. That's the thing. All right, so any questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, can I replace data in a table? Ayo, that's excellent question. Replacing data in a table. Yes, I need to answer it. The answer is no. The data in a table cannot be replaced. But this is what you can do. Suppose that I loaded the table in error. I did something stupid that I didn't want to do, right? This is what I could do. I could drop the table. I could drop my table, but this is a big difference. Let me explain to you. Deleting and dropping. Deleting, in SQL, you would just run the command to delete the data. Deleting would just delete the data. Dropping the table would remove the whole table. So I think this should actually stay drop. Because what this does is, just be aware of it. I want you to be aware of it. Because usually delete means we're removing the data, but the structure of the table stays in place. But here, what it does, delete actually removes the whole table. So if you were going to delete the table, you would just select the table here and click delete table. And then you can recreate it again just by loading the data again. That's how you would do it. But for the delete command itself, I have to try. That's an excellent question. I could try it. But I did not want to do delete. That's why I didn't do it. But that's not something that I wanted to do. Do you know why? Because sometimes it cannot be undone. I would have to look at the configuration, how it's set up. Because sometimes when you do update or delete, right, sometimes the changes are written in a buffer. They're not written in a database until you actually hit commit. But sometimes the setting could be set to auto commit. It means that if I do something, then I cannot undo. Since I click on options here, I have to be careful. All right? Because if I make an update, it will get written in a database. It's not written to the buffer here. Yeah. Anyway, if you did something that you did not like to do it, you can always drop the table and reload it. Or you can load it to the new table, but the problem is the space. You want to conserve the space, right? So here is an option. This is basically to, it helps you with validating the query, but the problem is it could take more resources, right? And here, some options are basically tell you what you can do if there is an error. Suppose that I'm running 5 queries. If query 2 has an error, what should we do? Should we skip it and then run the rest, or should we just stop? You can set it up the way you prefer. Whatever works for you, right? Yep. But that's an excellent question. The table can be deleted, but keep in mind it's not a delete, it's drop. The delete button will actually drop the table. So remember it from the database class. Delete means that it removes all the data, right? Until it's actually committed, it can be undone. Until it's committed. Once it's committed, that's it. Truncate also removes the data from the table, but it also reclaims the space. It reclaims the space that was occupied by the data that was removed. Drop will remove the table structure. Both truncate and delete will keep the table structured. Drop removes the table structure. Another difference is that there is a database log. Delete writes to the log, right? Truncate does not. That's a difference. So let me see. I seen a question. Let me see. Chat. If we upload the data in a text file, Oh, text file. Well, no, it does not help with space saving. The text file is not going to help with space saving. Not really, no. The way you save the space is just by deleting what you don't need. That's all. You keep what you need, delete what you don't need. But don't worry, I mean, you have to do way a lot of stuff to get up to 1 gigabyte. To get up to 1 gigabyte, you may need to download, even if you download all datasets in the classroom, you might not get to that file. Alright, so don't worry about it. But in general, this is just a housekeeping. Anything that you don't need to use gets archived. Well, but the dataset I gave you, it's not as huge. Yeah. Well, it's not more than 1 gigabyte, let's say. Yeah. Any questions? But I like the question about the delete. Replacing. Replacing, no, you cannot replace it directly. Nope, you cannot do that. Nope, nope, but this is an excellent question. Not here. But this is excellent question because in some systems, in some database system, you can, in some, you do the load and the load can delete everything that was there and overwrite. I see where the question comes from, but it does not apply to this database, right? And in fact, I believe when you load data from tables, does it say which format it has to be in? Oh, yes. So, Emmanuel, I have an answer for your question. You cannot upload the data in TXT, sorry. It has to be CSV, XLS, or XLSX. The data has to be in a spreadsheet format. Here, I have an answer for you right here. .txt? No. But if you know that your file is the comma delimited, you can save it as CSV. Yeah. Oh, you're the most welcome. You're the most welcome. I love these questions. That's excellent. All right. More questions? I like questions because, well, sometimes, well, I remember it myself as a student. Sometimes it could be difficult to phrase the question, but it really helps when you see somebody else in the classroom already posted the question and the question got answered, and then you can have a follow-up question. You're having an excellent discussion. So this is really nice. Yep. So anything else? I'm gonna stop sharing to see who is there still. All right. So yes, Alinish and Professor Garchova, is there anything I did not cover?
No, I think this was good. Thank you.
Yes. So we should call it a night, but I have no access to recording. Hello, Yelena? Yes. Is there anything I may have missed? Hello? Yelena, we don't hear you. Hello? I don't hear you. Oh, at what time or scenario do you have to work between dashDB and SQL? dashDB, SQL is inside dashDB. Emmanuel, SQL is inside the dashDB. You saw it, right? Here we go. It's here. Run SQL. It's here. After you load data in a table, you can do the SQL. And after the SQL, you're going to do R. Right? Stop sharing. I hope I answered the question. Anything else? Helena, is there anything I did not cover? Anything? And you know who to contact for help, right? I'm not sure what's going on with. Hello? Elena, do you hear me? Linish, are you still there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm still here.
Oh, who you contact? You contact me or Linish if you need help, right? Yeah. And where is it? Oh, D, what D stands for is a database. DB is a database. Well, no. Well, I realize that in general you could do it outside dashDB, but for this assignment, let's please use dashDB. Let's please use dashDB, because that's the whole purpose of learning how to use it. Alright? Alright, anything else? Let me know. I'm still here for a while.